Hello, Lou.
Hey, Tren.
How are you this week?
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Fair to middling.
Just take putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, could say it's been a week like that.
So what are we up to today? What are we going to be talking about today?
Well, I thought I'd call it themes.
Themes?
Now, I don't know if themes is the right word. By the end of the podcast, we would have worked it out, I think. So what I find really interesting about the Rider-Waite deck, which is the
Yeah.
deck that I'm going to use, surprise, surprise, some of the symbols show up throughout all the different cards.
All the different ones.
And how that it in itself tells a story.
Okay.
So I kind of want to speak to that stuff today.
Okay. All right.
So a little bit of that
a
stuff
little
today.
bit of stuff. Yeah. So we'll work out what we're going to call it by the end of it.
We will when we get the end of it.
But we're going to choose the card. We're going to use a light seers deck.
Excellent.
A light seers deck. Let's just see what we need to bring into our focus or be aware of for this episode.
Oh, I like that.
Episode for this for the themes.
Yeah, it's our focus for the themes.
It'll probably make a bit more sense when we get into it.
Yeah, probably.
We hope. We have the tower.
Oh my God. We were just having a whole conversation about how, we've been drawing different cards through the week
Exactly.
for different people and clients and stuff. And
yeah,
it's the theme of rebirth and death and change and transformation. And fuck me, look what we get. So the tower.
So the tower is all about change, isn't it? But
absolutely.
It's sudden change though, isn't it? It's sudden change.
Yeah,
it's like, things you weren't expecting but needed to happen.
Yes.
That's how I see it. Yes,
I like that. Sudden but needed.
Needed, exactly.
Yeah. Mightn't feel good.
Exactly. You might feel like you're complete shit, but
and then again, it might be that sudden thing, that sudden idea out of the blue that puts you right where you need to be.
Exactly.
So, so in relation to this, we might be blowing some stuff up.
Yeah.
We might be highlighting some stuff and maybe pulling a bit of structure apart, maybe even.
Could be doing that.
We could be. Anyway, you guys will let us know whether we're on the money or not by the end of the session. And this session will actually lead into the next session.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, cool. So we often hear when you're working with tarot about the Fool's Journey.
Yes.
What the fuck does that mean? It's kind of like the hero's journey. So I'm just going to talk about this a little bit because it's kind of what we're doing, but not. And this will obviously be the next one after that. So we start the tarot with
the Fool.
The Fool.
He's zero, isn't he? He's taking
zero.
that leap.
He is. And what's the zero? So it's like that moment before creation, before something's done, because if it's nil, right? It's zero. It hasn't got anything attached to it. And so he goes off on this journey. So we pay attention to what we see on the card, like we see the cliffs, we see these cliffs over here, we see the colours, the bandana, and so on. That'll make sense later, right? And then after the Fool, we have the Magician, right? So what do we mean by the Fool's Journey? And I'll tell more about this next week, but I need to explain this just to get it started. So we start out with the Fool, with knowing nothing, very open, very carefree, really not giving a fuck about too much.
Like a babe in the woods, isn't it?
Just like a babe in the woods, absolutely.
Wandering where they feel, doing what they want.
Absolutely. That's what he's doing. So he can sometimes be a little bit foolish too, right? So we want to make sure that,
you're not being foolish.
Yeah.
But you do have your eyes open.
That's correct, right? Which is what you want to do. So what happens is the Fool goes along and then he runs into a magician, right? And the magician shows him some things and he shows him that, what tools he can work with and that he's got them all here, and he teaches him the energy of manifestation and how to make magic happen. So the Fool then goes on, turns that into wisdom, right? And then he's got to learn how to connect with it, which would be with the High Priestess, right? So you can start to see a bit of a story happening there. And that's great, right? So we're going to be talking about that next week. But why I wanted to show you that is because some of the symbols, as I said on here, we look at the cliffs and we look at the mountains and stuff with the snow on them and all that stuff and what exactly that means, right? So I thought we would start just talking about the pillars.
Okay.
So the pillars on the tarot, right? Whenever you see them, they speak to thresholds that we need to cross. So there's some kind of change or gain or improvement or growth when we move through them.
Move through them. You can't stay on one side. You have to go.
You have to go through them. Absolutely, you have to go through them. Now, also on the tarot, this is kind of going to be a little bit complex, but a little bit makes so much sense in the end. The cards are all numbered, right? Except for the court cards. Right, because they're the people, or typically.
Typically people.
Right? Typically. Not always, but typically. So the closer the number is to the Fool, the less experience that card will have, or the energy of that card will have.
That makes sense. Hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to look at the Death card. Okay, so it's number 13. And I want to show you on this Death card. So for those of you who are listening, go grab, if you've got a Rider-Waite deck, grab it. I don't know if this would work for the others. I don't, for other decks. Some it may, but I don't think it'll work for all. Not as specifically. Not as specifically. But on this Death card, up near the sun in that back corner there, you'll see 2 towers. See that? See those 2 towers? I've never actually seen them. I've never actually noticed them before. There's 2 towers there, right? Now we have Death right in the foreground here, and the towers are right in the back. That's important. That matters, right? Then we move to the Moon card, which is number 18. So we're moving further away from the Fool, aren't we? Further away from the Fool, more to completion, therefore more knowledge. Look what's on the fucking card, those exact same towers, and they are the exact same towers when you look at them. But they're more front and centre now. They are front and centre, which means Death took a journey. He journeyed up to here, up to there. That's what he did. So here's how you would put those 2 together if they were the symbols that you focused on or were drawn to or whatever, right? So basically the moon is the gateway to the unknown, right? Which it is. Right? There's a lot of unknown. Gateway to the unknown, and it's also darkest before the dawn. Oh. So we got the dawn on here where we're rising. And then he goes right into the depths of it, right? So we have day and night. Now that can also be symbolic of time, if you will, letting you know that it will take you time to move through, right? If that makes sense. So it can definitely be that. And you probably can't hurry it either. You have to take that time to move through. You do have to take the time to move through. What the Sun card promises on the Death card, what the Sun card promises. What the fuck? What the Sun promises. You're getting ahead of yourself. I am on the Death card is that there's a rise of a new day. So Death, in fact, promises us that the sun will rise again, right? So it's letting us know this is momentary. Yeah, right? There is a new day coming. There is absolutely a new day coming. So if you think about how he's travelled, done this journey to get to here, and then what is he facing? Well, he's facing some reflections of himself. He's facing a little bit of 2 sides to himself. Maybe he's battling his own mind, that kind of thing. Maybe some subconscious things have now come into awareness. Risen up to the surface, be acknowledged and dealt with. And dealt with that weren't here before, right? So the change, the transition has brought him to here. And he's now looking at these things. It's almost like he's, like you said, doing self-reflection, but it's also looking back over his journey and looking, working out what he's learnt and what he needs to take forward into the next stage of his journey and what he needs to leave behind. Absolutely. I would 100% agree with that. So really interesting that those towers are there, and it's a little bit hard to see, but on here in front of the sun, there's like mountains and stuff, right? So once again, they're reflected, aren't they? Look what's in between those, right? So They do tell a story, and it's a matter of just taking a little bit more time to look at the pictures and seeing how does that connect one to the other.
And seeing the similarities, because like as we've said, the symbols show up in various cards. It's not just, the towers just don't show up in death. They show up in many times, actually.
Yeah, they do. It's just that these are the ones that are identical, right? So we know that they're the ones that death
Definitely
is particularly dealing with and
Yeah.
moving towards, and that the moon then shines the light on, as in reflectively.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, yeah, so does that make sense?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Just a little interesting and something a little different.
Little tidbits.
Little tidbits. Now we're just going to talk about these three for a second. So we have the Fool, remember, who's taken off on his journey. We talked about that. And we look at the
mountains in the
snow-capped
background.
mountains here. Now, just for shits and giggles, I've put in a minor card, right? So the minor version here is where we see this fella. He's walking, turned his back on something, he's walking away. But what he's actually doing is heading into this mountain here. And he's heading to the mountain so that he can become the hermit. So this is the beginning of the hermit's journey, right? And we look at that, and again, he's got to get right up the top here. So what happens with the hermit? Here are the snow peaks
that are in the Fool's
that
card.
are in the Fool's card, and he's now standing on the mountain, encompassing what he's learned
on his journey.
On his journey, right? Interesting,
yeah,
hey?
It may have been a difficult journey because he's had to realise he can't take everything with him.
That's
he
true.
needs to leave things behind to get to the heights that he needs, or the wisdom he needs to find within
wisdom
himself.
he needs to find within himself. Yeah, beautiful. I love that you picked up on that. Okay, so going to talk about the lovers and the devil now.
Oh, this will be interesting.
This is very interesting. So the devil himself, better the devil you know, so they say, right? So he speaks about restriction, limitation, addiction. I was going to say medication, but
no.
Anyway, addiction, limitation, unhealthy relationships, unhealthy thoughts, mental health itself.
Yep. It's all the doubts, the self-doubts, the chaining yourself to certain ideals, certain expectations, isn't it? It's all about chaining yourself or limiting yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. Then we have the lovers, which is like, from a relational point of view, much more healthy relationship. They're more open on me. And it's about their connection and the coming together. So what are these two, apart from the two figures and the devil and the angel, what do they have in common, right? What's the common themes? How is this transpired?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it.
So go to the lovers first. So on the lovers, just want to get the wording right. I probably haven't fucking got it written down. It's like the tree of knowledge, right?
Yeah, the tree of knowledge, it's behind the woman figure, isn't it?
I think it is. I'm just checking that out. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I've written it down. I just need to rewrite it. Yeah, I'm like, where did I put that?
Somewhere she's written it down.
I have. I have.
But it's also the snake going up that tree as well. Could also represent that, quite often that temptation, isn't it? Isn't that what is in the Bible or whoever?
Absolutely.
Temptation.
He's the temptation.
So that also can be represented by the devil. The temptation, to do or take action or something you shouldn't be, but you're tempted to do it.
Yeah. So tree of life, right? Tree of life and tree of knowledge. That's what they are. The tree of life and the tree of knowledge. And the snake very much represents the temptation, right? So the tree of between them, right, speaks about the balance between the body and the mind, right? The tree of life and the tree of knowledge. That's what that's talking about, right? But what happens if you indulge in that shit? Like really indulge.
Like overindulge.
Overindulge. Guess what? It's on his tail.
Okay.
And it's on her tail and his tail.
So it's actually represented. So we look at the lovers, we've got the tree of life, and on the devil, she's got that little tail with the grapes on it, isn't it? And the male figure is standing behind a tree of...
Yeah, so like the tree of knowledge, rather, is her, because she's the one that's like...
Yeah, she's the one that was tempted, wasn't she?
Here, eat this. Oh, she
Yeah.
hands it over, eat this tree of knowledge, right? So that's what it is. So, like the garden in the Empress, because the Empress is in a garden, right? She also has the grapes and everything again. It's the sits over here with
So
the woman.
that's that temptation, isn't it? It
Mhm.
really is. I mean, in the Empress, it's different because it's all about creation and the abundance of it and the bringing things into being. But this is
fertility and
fertility
stuff
now.
of it. Yeah.
But this is more about the temptation.
And where that'll take you, right?
Yeah.
So when you buy into that stuff and that becomes like you're lustful about it. Right?
Yes.
That's what that can be. So the tree of life and the tree of knowledge are both represented in these cards here. Right? So interesting how that goes through, and then of course grapes are everywhere.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
They represented a lot with the pentacles.
Yes.
Right? And the pentacles are your material and your resources and your wealth and your value and all that stuff, right? So
wow, I'd never realized the connection between the two.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, because you see on the Lovers card, there's a little flame. So it's like the flame tree.
The flame tree on this side.
Yeah, which is,
on the opposite side.
Those 12 flames, right? The red is the passion, but the 12 flames represent the zodiac.
Fancy that. I did not know that.
Yeah, each one of the zodiacs. So there you go. And here you'll see how the devil tempts the man by igniting his tail. Right?
Yeah, so
what's your mind getting
exactly,
you to do, right? Or follow. So yeah, that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, so there's
look at these cards differently now.
Yeah.
Completely differently.
So many different things like it, but I just wanted to use this session to prep for the whole Fool's journey, which we will talk in much more detail as to how that story goes. But just when you're looking at your symbols, so these are the other things that once you can see how they connect and where the symbols are in relation to if they would land beside one another, once you know the story of how they connect, then you can tell the story in a different way. In a different way. So you've got, what do you see, feel, know straight away, of course, and then there's these other things. There's a whole other layer.
And all the symbols, but then go deeper into the symbols. Go really deep, because they're not just surface symbols, are they?
No, they're not. They're not just surface symbols, which is interesting. Why I guess I like to work with the Rider-Waite, because I can see the theme. Now, I'm not saying that other cards aren't themed, but what I am saying is that it's really obvious here, because you saw the towers on the moon, and the towers on death. You can tell they're the same cards, right? And yet you look at the tower itself and you can tell that's a different tower because of the windows.
Exactly,
right?
Completely. And it's in the tower card, it's raised up, isn't it? It's on a cliff.
Yeah.
And it's on its own.
Yes, that's the other thing. And even if it was a close-up of the one tower, it's still not the same tower because of the different windows and stuff. So just take your time with your cards and see if you can find where yours link like that. Because they're definitely telling a story. And as we go through, we have more information, right? Which is interesting when we look at this, because that's your 6, right? So not really far from the Fool's, where he's first learning about relationships and stuff. And then we have 15. So this is after death even, right? And
it is.
I don't know about you guys, but I know that in my reality sometimes when I'm going through a change that I'm not necessarily comfortable with, or that I might throw me into a bit of a spin, my head can completely take over, and that's what that can be.
Exactly.
Right? So you can kind of see now
how you can go from here, being in this, joyful, loving
utopian place,
that straight to something like the tower moment can come up
and have
just put you in a spin.
And have you restricted like that. So knowing these deeper things, or these other things about the tarot, can certainly help when you've got someone sitting opposite you. If you're starting to see, look, where all the pain, and you'll be able to say to them, look, it's truly your head. This is how I know.
Exactly.
Or it's I can see the limitation and restriction you placed upon yourselves. Here's how I know.
Exactly.
So it just helps. It's quite therapeutic, really.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So I hope that makes sense. It wasn't too deep. And now I'm looking at So we've done those, haven't we?
Yeah, we've done. Yeah.
Here's an interesting theme which is what started this journey for me, right? All the others were going to come in later, but this is what started it for me. So we're going to look at the court cards and we're going to look at the wands, right? And you'll notice here the pyramids, right? So there's these pyramids on these cards and it's barren. The land is barren, right?
Yeah.
So what is that? Is there like not much growth there? Like what's going on?
Or you've cleaned, you wipe the slate clean.
Wipe the slate
ready
clean.
for a new start.
Ready for a new start, right? So the pyramids, there's a little bit written about them being or representing the energy of the pyramid of Giza.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
So interesting, right? That's what they say. And that is shown on those three. You'll see pyramids in those cards.
So the page, knight, and queen.
Page, knight, and queen. So the page is here and he's facing them. The knight seems to be coming in at a different angle.
Yeah.
And they're a little bit further back. And I want you to notice the colour on this anyway. So that's quite orange.
So the page is quite orange.
Sorry, thanks, Tren. It's got to keep.
I was going to say the floor, but not the desert is quite orange.
Desert is quite orange, and as are the pyramids, right?
The pyramids, yeah.
We're getting a little bit more lighter in colour here.
Going a bit more yellowy in the night and further away.
And further away.
And on the queen, they are very yellow.
They are very yellow. And yet, on the king,
there's none.
There's none.
That's interesting.
And remember, the king's like the embodiment of, right? So he's finished, so he's done it. He's done it all right.
Mastered everything he needed to.
Mastered everything. Whereas these guys, these three, the page, the knight, and the queen, are still doing their learning about that particular energy. So what does a pyramid represent? Growth, rebirth.
Oh, of course.
Ascension.
Of course, because I'm thinking, as soon as you said pyramid, I thought death. But that's just the start, isn't it?
That's the start,
That's the start, because then you go into the rebirth and ascension.
Yeah, resurrection.
Yes.
Right, definitely resurrection. And sometimes the even the, like we talked about, the barren lands or the desolate lands, as it says here, can be supportive of new life, which is what Tren said earlier about wiping that slate clean. And ultimately a pyramid is the evolution of the soul.
So you are reaching the top, the pinnacle, aren't you?
Pinnacle.
You are reaching the pinnacle.
The pinnacle. So that's what those little pyramids mean in this regard. And the fact that they change colour, I find is really fascinating, and interesting that it does that, because to me, it's like that's your pyramids of gold.
Yes.
She's got the psychic cat in front of her. She's open to receive. There's all of these things that come into play, and she's resurrected herself, basically. She's ascending up.
She's moving up.
Yeah.
Moving up in the levels.
She's moving up in the levels. So very interesting. The other thing, I guess, that's really interesting about the wands, and I'll just speak into this too while I'm thinking about it, is the salamanders, which are like the lizards.
Yes.
Right? And if you look closely on the wand of the page, you'll see that even though that little salamander looks like he's going around in a circle, which he is, his tail doesn't touch his mouth. He's not complete. So there's this openness, right? And then when we look on the knight, it's open, right? It's coming closer, but it's still open. So when we see it on the king, it's closed.
It's closed.
Because that has done its journey, and then it's manifested itself down in the corner here where the little lizard sits or the little salamander sits. So
it's resurrected itself.
It's resurrected itself, right? Come out of the fire, right?
And actually, I had this card through the week with a client, and I've not done this before, but my eye focused on that salamander behind the king on his throne, and I just said to her, "You've certainly been through the fire and back." you've been through the worst of it. And she went, oh my God, yes, I have.
Yeah.
So she's like, and it's funny because I think we were talking about metaphors a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was talking to this lady, and I said, because I noticed the salamander, I said, it's like the lady from the Game of Thrones, the Queen of Dragons or whatever she was called. I said, you're the Queen of Dragons because she has walked through fire to get to where she is. And she had, it was quite traumatic what she had to get through to get to this stage. So she really embodied, even though she was a lady, she embodied this card.
Yeah, and
She
you
embodied this
can
card.
embody that energy of the king, you know, because things are completion, just like you're saying.
Exactly.
Totally.
But yeah, and it's like I've never, the salamander has never stuck out to me like it did that with that person. You know, she had gone through fire to get through to here, to where she is.
And completed
it.
Yeah.
And came, yes, she's come out scarred but she's moved through, she's healing, she's not leaving, she is letting it go as an experience and moving 20 times higher.
Yeah, right. So there you go.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed that. It was something a little bit deeper
Something
today.
a bit different.
Yeah, something a bit different, because I thought, you know, we've kind of talked about a bit, so I just wanted to bring something in a little bit different. Didn't want to go too deep on it all, but what we would like to encourage is for you guys to pull your cards out and see where you can find the themes, where you can maybe see the same tree or the same bird or the same something, and then put the cards beside each other. What story does that tell? Just that itself.
Yes, exactly. Like we talked about the water in the Empress, not the Empress, the High Priestess. High Priestess flowing through the cards.
Absolutely, right.
So, you know.
So there's all of this stuff that connects one to the other.
Yeah.
And we will definitely be talking about the Fool's Journey next week to give you more insight into how one card leads to another and the knowledge that he gains and all of that stuff. So
yeah, because it's interesting to know the history and the story.
It is interesting to know his journey.
The more you hear it, the more you pick up as well. So
absolutely,
we're not just talking to beginners here, we're talking to everybody.
Absolutely.
Because like I said, the more you hear, the more you pick up things that you hadn't heard before.
Yeah, or you might have a slight different take, or you know, maybe and we'd love to hear your take. We'd love to hear whatever your take is. So hope you've enjoyed that. A little bit of a different session.
A bit of a difference.
Yeah, not so much laughing today.
No, there wasn't. There wasn't.
It's serious.
But it's just, we're just asking you to look into your cards deeper.
Yeah.
And look for certain themes that are going to add, like we always say, more layers to your reading, because we can read surface level. Anyone can do that. Yeah. But we're going deeper and deeper. And because the more deeper you go, the better your reading will be. And the more your client will get out of it.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
So connecting with our clients or ourselves. Yeah.
And like, I don't know about you, but it's like, well, I think most of us, we're here to help the client.
Yeah.
We're here to help the client.
Yeah. Next level, right? We'll step up and be next level. Next level reader. We're not ordinary. We're not ordinary.
No way. We want extraordinary.
Because we are extraordinary. Yeah, there you go. So we hope you've enjoyed this session with us, this podcast, because it was fun going through and finding where
looking at different and really looking into the cards. Really looking into the cards and finding those connections. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, you know what to do.
Yep.
Like, subscribe, share.
Yep. Send us your questions.
Send us your questions, all the things. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we will catch you next week.
See you later.
Big love. Bye.